So why is your mindset important? How does it affect me? It affects your success. John Maxwell said, the difference between average people and achieving people is their perspective of failure. The way your mind sees things is your perspective. So your success is about whether or not you have a fixed mindset or a growth mindset. That makes the difference between average and achieving people, is your growth or fixed mindset. Abraham Lincoln said, whether you think you can or whether you think you can't, you're right. Your mindset affects your health and your healing. In Counsel on Health, Ellen White says, Satan is the originator of disease, and the physician is warring against his work and power. Sickness of the mind prevails everywhere. 9/10, so that's 90% of diseases from which men suffer have their foundation here. They have their foundation where?
In the mind.
In the mind. Ministry of Healing. Disease is sometimes produced and is often greatly aggravated by the imagination. Many are lifelong invalids who might be well if they only thought so. Lifelong invalids might be made well if they only thought so. Hippocrates even said, it is more important to know what sort of person has a disease than to know what sort of disease a person has. Your mindset also affects you spiritually. Proverbs 23 verse 7 says, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. So we've gone over what your mindset is, how it affects you, why it's important, and now we're going to talk about how you can change your mind and how you can have a healthy mind. There's a whole science to this actually, based on changing your mindset. It's a very real thing. One way to start changing your mindset is to start changing your automatic thought. So, you have your core beliefs, and then you have your intermediate beliefs, which are your assumptions and rules, and all of that makes up your automatic thoughts. So let's say you have a situation, your situation causes your automatic thought, which causes your emotion, which causes your behavior. So your situation might be, I have a lot of work to do. Your automatic thought is, I can't do this anymore, which makes you feel overwhelmed and discouraged, and then it causes you to want to avoid your tasks and lose interest in doing your best. So let's backtrack a bit. You can't change your situation. Your situation is that way. You have a lot of work to do. But what you can change is your automatic thought. If you take this, I can't do this anymore, and you say, wait a minute, yes I can. God says you can do all things through Christ. So that changed you're no longer overwhelmed and discouraged, and you actually want to do your tasks and you want to do your best at them. God's promises versus our thinking. I'm just going to run through these. Actually, I'm going to give you a paper with them all. We say, I can't go on, but God says, my grace is sufficient for thee. I can't figure things out. I will direct your steps. I can't do it. You can do all things. I'm not able, but God is able. It's not worth it. It will be worth it. I can't forgive myself. I forgive you. I can't manage. I will supply all your needs. I'm afraid. I have not given you the spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. I'm always worried and frustrated. Cast your cares on me. It's impossible. All things are possible. Nobody really loves me. I love you. I'm too tired. I will give you rest. I'm not smart enough. I will give you wisdom. I feel all alone. I will never leave you, nor forsake you. So, I want to give you these, and I want you to use them as a reference. So when you feel one of these automatic thoughts pops into your head, you can claim God's promise and change your automatic thought. Abraham Lincoln said, "We can complain because rose bushes have thorns, or rejoice because thorn bushes have roses." It's all about your mindset. Your lifestyle is also very important to change your mindset. I'm just going to briefly go over a few things. Uplifting music. Numerous and extensive research has been done on how classical music and other uplifting music positively affects brain chemistry. It actually changes the chemistry in your brain. Exercise in the fresh air and sunshine. Of course, without proper blood flow and oxygen, your brain and body can't work very well. But I've also had personal experience on a regular basis of how if I just get outside in the fresh air and sunshine, my mood just changes, just like that. and it's often just enough to kind of tip my mindset scale, if you want to call it that. And food. Satan sees that he cannot have so great power over minds when the appetite is kept under control as when it is indulged. He is constantly working to lead men to indulgence because he wants to have control over the mind. Under the influence of unhealthful food, the conscience becomes stupefied, the mind is darkened, and its susceptibility to impressions is impaired. Sleep is also important. One study found that if you memorize sets of positive, neutral, and negative words, then sleep for 7 to 8 hours, you will remember 80% of all 3 lists a day later. If you miss a night of sleep, you will still remember most of the negative neutral words, but you only remember 41% of the positive words. This is because your brain interprets a lack of sleep as a threat to the central nervous system, then goes on high alert, scanning the world for additional threats, that is, negatives. So we know we want to listen to good music, we want to get exercise in the fresh air and sunshine, we want to eat the right food, we want to sleep well, and we want to trust in God with no fear.
Thank you.
Where was I? Okay, so he's talking about, he's done a lot of research on how your brain is affected by fear and so forth. The constant firing of the anxiety system occurs in brains out of balance and is an overreaction to environmental stimuli. The constant stress impairs physical growth by shunting blood and energy away from our internal organs to the muscles, right? Your fight and flight mode. When you're anxious, you're fearful, whatever, it stops blood flow everywhere except to your heart, your lungs, and your muscles, I think. Pretty much. So that you can run if you need to, or whatever the case may be. Further, our immune system is impaired, and our prefrontal cortex, that's what's in between these two parts right here, your decision-making area becomes paralyzed. This is why people perform so poorly on examinations when they are anxious and fearful. 1 John 4:18 says, "There is no fear in love, but perfect love casteth out fear, because fear hath torment. He that feareth is not made perfect in love." And can't we just totally trust in God's perfect love for us, and that can cast out all of our fear? I don't know who wrote this, but I really liked it. It says, "There isn't enough room in your mind for both worry and faith. You must decide which one will live there." On top of changing your lifestyle, it's also important to surrender your thoughts to God and focus on the praiseworthy. 2 Corinthians 10, verse 5. "Casting down imaginations and every high thing that exalteth itself against the knowledge of God, and bringing into captivity every thought to the obedience of Christ." Romans 12, verse 2. "And be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind, that ye may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of God." Philippians 2, verse 5 says, "Let this mind be in you, which was also in Christ Jesus." Philippians 4 verse 8, finally, brethren, whatsoever things are true, whatsoever things are honest, just, pure, lovely, whatsoever things are of good report, if there be any virtue, and if there be any praise, think on these things. So let's think about some Bible characters that that put this information that we've gone through so far into practice. Who comes to mind? Think of someone who's had a growth mindset.
Paul.
Who? Paul? How so?
When he said, rejoice in the Lord always, and again I say rejoice, he was his circumstances were too bad. I think the dungeons, he was in a dungeon when he wrote that. Positive.
Yeah.
I think of Jonathan,
Jonathan? How?
when he took his sword or shield bearer, was it? Or
Yes.
armor
Yeah,
bearer.
armor bearer, yeah.
And he climbed up that cliff and defeated that garrison on top of that hill.
Yeah. That makes me think about David and Goliath. I mean, what kind of mindset would David have had to go up against Goliath? And it was fueled by his trust in his Father in heaven. I also think about Christ in the wilderness. That would be a huge mind battle for anyone in his circumstances. But Christ used God's promises and had the proper relationship with his Father to be able to win Satan's ultimate mind battle. I have a quote for that from Sermons and Talks. We remember Calvary. We remember who endured temptation in the wilderness, faint, pale, and hungry on the field of battle, that he might work out for man a glorious victory. And when we are tempted to indulge appetite at the expense of reason and health, we remember how Christ overcame Satan, that man might become victor on his own account and in his own behalf. We want to bear these things in mind. So, we've seen what your mindset is, the difference between growth and fixed mindset. We've learned that it is important, that it affects your whole life. We've learned some ways to change your mindset with lifestyle, changing your thought patterns, and claiming God's promises. And we've seen how people have used this information and has changed their mindset and what that has done for them. In conclusion, I want to read this quote. Satan personated the serpent in Eden, regarding this creature as best adapted for his line of temptations. Satan has been increasing in skillful methods by constantly practicing upon the human mind. Wait, what? He's been increasing in skillful methods by what? Constantly practicing upon the human mind. The battle is over your mind. Who will win it? We serve a not yet God. Remember I told you to put that phrase in the bookshelf? Okay, take it down, not yet. He does expect us to grow. He understands if we're not there yet. And he will help us gain the victory.